So if that's the path the Liberals want to go, we're going to fight them every step of the way. We made it very clear. I said, whether it's confidence or not, I don't care. We're going to vote against any measure that attacks working people. Back to work, binding arbitration, we'll be voting against it. We'll be fighting it every step of the way. I made that abundantly clear to Justin Trudeau, and I make that clear again today.
Under Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code, I've directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to assist the parties in settling the outstanding terms of their collective agreements by imposing final binding arbitration.
Well, would you look at that? Seems like this happy marriage between the NDP and the Liberals might be coming to an end sooner rather than later, as this whole rail situation is becoming more and more dire by the hour. Now, we're actually going to be going through the absurdity of the Jagmeet Singh and Steve McKinnon interviews, as well as some other clips from the media. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Morgan Lowry, the Canadian Press. I have a question for Mr. Singh about today's rail stoppage. You said earlier on the picket line that you would vote against any Liberal back-to-work legislation, even if it's a confidence vote. So my question is, if it comes to that, if you do end up voting against the Liberals in a confidence vote, would that break your supply and confidence agreement with that party?
Well, we made it very clear that we would always oppose back-to-work legislation. I made that very clear to Justin Trudeau. I looked him right in the eyes. I said, we will never support any back-to-work legislation. Never count on us. You'll have to go to Conservatives, who are the enemy of working people. You can go to yourself, because we know the Liberals have sold out working people again and again with back-to-work legislation, forcing them back to work, undermining their rights.
Right off the bat, fantastic question. However, this guy's talking about the rights being undermined. Does he care about the rest of the nation's rights? Because they're also getting affected by this rail situation. And that's why we believe that the federal government should be stepping in. Because yes, these 9,000 plus individuals do have a right to negotiate. However, I believe it's been a year of negotiating and they still haven't come to an agreement. And now they're putting the whole nation at jeopardy when 90 to 95% of our transport all happens on these railways. And so he wants to act like he's a big tough guy saying he's here for the union members, but what about the rest of the country?
Are you willing to break this confidence agreement?
Well, if it's a confidence vote, that's breaking the agreement. We always have the right to withdraw our support from the agreement that we have. That remains our position. We can always pull away. We can always break it. But I'll make it very clear. If Justin Trudeau brings in any measure that attacks workers' rights, we will vote against it. Confidence or not, agreement or not, we will vote against it, and we will stand up for working people.
So he says he's going to support the working people, but it seems like only the union workers, because a vast majority of workers who aren't part of this whole rail situation are going to be affected. And that's something even the next reporter poses as a question. And he just throws the buck onto Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, saying they're the ones to blame, when this guy himself is keeping them, one, in power, but also would vote against anything to get these people back into work so that the rest of the nation wouldn't be affected. Like, the disconnect is insane.
Louis Global News. So if the lockout continuing on the railway lockout, if it continues, there will be layoffs in sectors like forestry, auto parts, as goods are unable to be moved. So at what point does the national economic impact of this lockout trump railway interests and require government intervention?
Well, let's be clear about who I'm blaming for this. First of all, the first person that's at fault for why we're in this mess right now is Justin Trudeau. The railway laws are federal, and they are not up to standard. Justin Trudeau should have brought in better protections for not just the workers, but better railway safety is better for all people, all folks across Quebec and Canada. So we need those laws to be brought in. Justin Trudeau failed to do that. That's a part of why we're in this boat.
Now, I'm not going to disagree that Justin Trudeau and the federal government probably haven't done their due diligence in terms of rules and regulations, safety, ethics, whatever the cases may be. But the question posed was, when is enough enough? How many Canadians are going to be having to suffer before you inevitably have to get involved? And all he does is pass the buck on to Justin Trudeau. He also just blames the employers, saying they're the ones at fault. Yeah, then when the federal government decides to step in and do something, which, yes, it might be a little bit too late for that, but that's neither here nor there. They are actually stepping in now. He's saying that he's going to vote against it because he wants to stand with the working people. Yet he's not standing with the vast majority of people, as I said, that are going to be affected by this. And this actually kind of piggybacks into the next clip I want to play, which is from CTV, where they were actually posing the question on whether rail workers should be essential workers.
You know, it's not just farmers. It's the realities with the agri-food supply chain is that we have hundreds of small and medium-sized businesses that process these crops that in small towns and across this country. And so, you know, it's farmers will feel it, but everyone will feel it. Thousands of employees are going to be, you know, essentially locked out of the economy as a result of this decision.
Is there an alternative to rail?
It'd be nice to say there was. I mean, there's the ability to do you know, some trucking, but the reality is when you look at the entire resource set of natural resources that move on rail, there's just not enough trucks to make it happen. So you'll have, you know, some ability to move some crops to processing facilities or mills or that kind of thing. But the reality is there is no alternative. It's not possible to move what we usually move 95% of our, you know, tens of millions of tons of grain by truck. It's just not possible.
You tell us off the top that this is a frustrating situation, Greg. Are you more frustrated with the union, with the companies? Where do your feelings lie, and what are you hearing from crop producers on that?
Yeah, look, you know, the collective bargaining process is meant to bring the two sides together for them to be able to come to a deal. And obviously, both sides will use economic leverage to try and improve their positioning. But the reality is that you know, the entire economy is being leveraged and being put on the table and being held hostage by this. And so while, you know, that's somewhat understandable, the reality is that it's the government's responsibility. If we're not seeing movement in a collective bargaining process this important that is taking out this much of the Canadian economy, it's the government's responsibility to intervene, and they have those powers. For us, we need that government action because clearly the two sides can't solve this on their own.
Do you think engineers, conductors, and yard workers should be considered essential workers?
Well, when you look at the impact that this is going to have, when you look at how it's going to spread throughout the economy, it's going to impact consumers and jobs everywhere and cost the economy this much money. I think there is a case to be made that from an economic harm standpoint, in a situation like this where we have both railways, that they are essential. They're quite frankly essential. There's so many Canadians that rely on this for their own livelihoods, that for the small, basically the small self-interest of three parties to hold, you know, all them hostage is not ideal.
And finding that out is actually mind-blowing because I remember a few years ago when Canada Post decided to go on a little bit of a strike. They did a rolling strike or an alternating strike where they didn't fully strike. It was just every other day they had service, and the people lost their mind. It was around Christmas time, so everyone was concerned about their Christmas packages and whatnot. But unlike the rail system, Canada Post has many different competitors at this point, where a lot of people can change who they want to ship with. You can go with FedEx or Purolator or UPS or Amazon. The rail system, they have two rail systems. So why would they not be essential workers? Why would the federal government not deem them that from the start and say, listen, you guys have the monopoly of transport across the nation once it arrives from the ports? You guys are essential. And not only do they do the transport of goods, a lot of other transportation companies like the GO train that takes individuals to and from work or, you know, different areas of the city or the country also use those rails. And once you shut them down, they're not allowed to use them either. So the fact that these guys are not essential workers makes absolutely no sense to me. And as you heard from that gentleman, there's a huge economic burden that is going to be compiling over the next few days. And actually, when we get into the Steve McKinnon interview, after he makes the announcement that they're going to be doing the arbitration, all the reporters start to ask him, okay, so what does this exactly mean? How soon will trains be up and running again? and just listen to his non-answer answer.
Hi, Minister. When the WestJet strike happened, the order for binding arbitration didn't end the strike. Can you confirm whether this order will actually end the strike, the lockout in this case?
We're confident that it will.
Why?
The Canada Industrial Relations Board now has its own process to follow. It will be following that, and that will extend over the coming hours and couple days. Yep.
Okay, so, sorry, can you clarify what's going to happen now, as in when do you expect it to end? Like, will railways be operating tomorrow? And do you blame the railway companies for the lockout today?
The process is that I direct the Canada Industrial Relations Board. They, of course, are an independent body, an arm's length body. They have a process that includes and requires consultation with the parties. They will be doing that and rendering a decision, I hope, very quickly.
Nick Murray, CBC.
I just want to go back to one of the previous questions, and I'm curious what the actual wording of the order is, because going back to that Industrial Relations Board decision from earlier this month in the WestJet case, they said that unless the order explicitly lays out either that the lockout has to end or that workers aren't allowed to strike, that both sides can continue those activities. So can you lay us out for what exactly the wording of the order is?
Well, you'll be able to get that, I'm sure, online at the appropriate time. I'm not quite sure how those processes unfold, but fundamentally we are asking the board to direct a resumption of activities and a return to work at the railways. We are asking them to begin the process of binding arbitration and to extend collective agreements that are currently in place.
Okay, but what does that mean? Are you ordering the lockouts to end and simultaneously ordering the workers that they're not allowed to strike? And also, how does that apply to CN that hasn't been issued a strike notice yet?
I'm ordering the three things that I just told you I was ordering: resumption of activities, binding arbitration process, and extending the collective agreement.
Now, firstly, what a garbage answer he gave that first reporter when she's giving him a prime example of an order of binding arbitration not actually doing anything. Yet he's sitting there saying, oh, don't worry about it, it'll go through. Yet she's clearly not the only reporter who wants better clarification, a better understanding of what the solutions are here. And even in the next set of questions of how fast or of a time frame will the trains be up and running again, well, he just passes the buck over to the independent organization saying, well, depends on how fast they work. That's when the trains will come back. Yet when pushed again on, well, what if they don't want to listen to your ruling? He decides to talk about how he can flex his new ministerial powers in this clip here.
And I guess just as a follow-up, I know we've all been seeking clarity about when the trains will move again. What is your expectation for when the trains will start running again?
Again, if you're sensing any lack of clarity on that for me, it's because there is an independent agency tribunal involved here who must follow their own process. Obviously, I'm acting at a very early stage here and hoping that they will act with similar dispatch. And I assume that the trains will be running, within days. But again, I want to be deferential to the process that will unfold here.
Jeremy Shaw, CTV.
It doesn't seem to be specifically clear how soon this could get workers back to work and trains running again. And so we've heard from industry groups on the economic impacts here, tens of millions of dollars a day. What will the federal government do to mitigate economic impacts?
Well, we are acting, I think you would agree, we gave negotiations every possible opportunity to succeed. Right up until midday today, I spoke to the mediators. I, as you know, visited with the parties in Montreal and in Calgary in the prior days. Came to my own conclusions. But we have an impasse here. We wanted to give these negotiations the absolute possibility of concluding successfully. We see little prospect of that currently, and I think I was pretty transparent and open about that. So now, what do we have? We have the tools that the law, that Parliament has given the Minister of Labor. Those tools include the ability to direct the CIRB to do the three things that I just indicated, and then to issue an order. We're hoping and confident that they will do that with dispatch, but they are an independent agency, and they will do what they have to do to make sure that they follow all of their procedures. At the end of that, I think you'll have the clarity that you're seeking.
Hi, Minister Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. Thank you for your patience. The unions were opposed to binding arbitration. Have you communicated this to them, and do you know if they plan to challenge this order in court? Are they going to cooperate?
I've been in regular contact with the Teamsters, and of course, so those channels of communication in person, on the phone, have been wide open, and obviously consult with other labor leaders as well across the country. As for how they react to this, that is obviously something that belongs to them.
But to be clear, you don't have any guarantees from them that they won't challenge this or take this to court?
What I have a guarantee of is a power conferred on the Minister of Labor by Parliament that exists. I can't imagine it exists or would be a more practically or appropriately used than in the case of two national railways ceasing their operations. So we're very, very confident about the path that we've selected here. And as for the parties, either party or all three parties, you'll have to get their reaction.
Now, McKinnon did not seem happy with that follow-up, basically saying, well, what if they don't want to listen to your ruling or they challenge you? And again, he had to flex that ministerial power there. However, as you heard him say, it's now with the independent group. Depending on how fast they work, that's when things will open up. By this other report that I'm going to play, they basically said even if things get up and running, there's still going to be quite a delay from all the backlog and trying to get the product moving again.
But outside of that, look, harvest season is coming up or started for some farmers across the country. They're not going to be able to move their goods to port and get them out the door, seeing things pile up. Same thing with food that would be on the railways too. So all kinds of different things touching the whole Canadian economy. And CN has warned that every day that there is a lockout in this situation, on the back end, once this situation is handled, it will take 3 to 5 days to be able to move the goods that are not going to be able to move. So it's not just the front end issues of things being closed, it's the back end issues of being able to have things start moving again and deal with the backload of goods that are going to be able to move. So this is clearly a very negative situation for the Canadian economy and a difficult situation for the federal government to be able to navigate at this point.
And, he's not wrong, but as they stated, this could have been dealt with months ago or even weeks ago, at least at that. They shouldn't have left it to the very last minute. I get it. They're trying to let this whole negotiation thing happen free and fairly and whatever the case may be. But with such a detrimental outcome of having two national railways potentially closed at the exact same time, which is what we're having now, you could have done a lot more to mitigate this. Again, at least in my opinion. And that's always what this is. But I do love to hear from you guys. So please let me know in the comment section below what you think about all this. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.